The alarm cracked through the silence at 3:47 a.m. Dylan's fingers, rough and calloused, reached for the vibrating phone before the sound could wake his daughter. He slipped from the edge of the mattress, an old twin barely holding together, and padded barefoot. Across the cold linoleum floor of their tiny apartment, a pot of water hissed on the stove. No coffee machine, just boiled water, instant grounds. And a chipped white mug with a faded superhero logo his daughter once gave him. The city outside still slept. But Dylan's day had already begun. He buttoned his Navy custodial uniform, smoothing the stitched-on name tag, DYLAN, as if it somehow made the job feel more like a role than a burden. He packed his daughter's lunch in silence. Peanut butter sandwich, an apple with a sticker face drawn on it, and a folded napkin note that simply read, "Be brave today." He scribbled that same line every day. And every day, she kept it outside. The bus hissed as it pulled up to the curb, fog steaming from its vents like an exhausted dragon. Dylan climbed aboard, nodding to the same tired driver, settling into the same cold window seat, watching the same city blur by dot by 5 a.m. The terminal doors opened with a beep, and Dylan walked into the gleaming glass and steel of an airport that never truly slept. He pushed his mop cart forward, the wheels squeaking on tile to clean for praise. He wasn't meant to be noticed, but tonight he would be, because a flight had just landed. And across the concourse, a woman had arrived alone, confused, lost on, and neither of them knew yet how much they'd be the answer the other had never asked for. Do planes ever take you where your heart wants to go? Not just your body. The question floated up from beside him like steam from her cocoa. Dylan looked down at Lily, 8 years old, tangled curls, sleepy eyes, still filled with stars, and smiled. "Sometimes," he said softly, "but only if you're brave enough to follow it." They sat near Gate C4, where the morning light spilled like honey through the tall windows. Dylan's shift had ended, but he stayed. Always did. He liked watching the planes with her. It was their secret routine before school. Before the noise of the world, Lily clutched a worn sketchbook. The corners curled from years of use. She opened to a page she hadn't shown him before. A house on a hill, a big dog, a music room, and the two of them drawn stick figure style, smiling, holding hands. "This is my dream," she whispered. "I draw it when I feel small." He blinked back the sting in his eyes, nodding slowly. "It's beautiful, Lil. You think it'll come true?" "I think dreams work like planes," he said, voice quiet. "You gotta believe they'll land where they're supposed to." Lily leaned into his shoulder. For a moment, everything else disappeared. The second job, the bills, the worn soles of his shoes. But then movement caught his eye. Across the way, a woman in a beige coat stood turning in slow circles, dragging 3 bags and dropping a 4th. Completely lost. Lily noticed too. "She looks like me when I forget where I put my shoes," she said. Dylan stood up slowly, a gentle smile tugging at his face. "Let's go help her. I swear it was." "Right here," the woman mumbled, spinning in place with a half-zipped suitcase in one hand, and her phone flashlight aimed at the floor like it held answers. Her coat hung off one shoulder, scarf twisted. Her hair, sleek, shoulder-length, was frizzing at the crown, and she kept patting it like the chaos might retreat if she looked calm enough. Dylan approached slowly. Lily, trailing behind like a shadow with oversized sneakers, "Need a landing crew?" he asked, gently. She stopped, looked up, blinked twice, eyes like wet glass meeting his. "I lost my car," she said flatly, not like permanently, just temporarily. "I landed 2 hours ago and forgot where I parked. The app isn't working. The battery's dying. And I may or may not have yelled at a Delta kiosk." Dylan bit back a grin. "So just your average morning at JFK." Her lips curved, half amusement, half defeat. "Exactly." Lily tilted her head. "You look like a movie star who forgot her lines." The woman laughed, short, surprised. "She yours." "All mine," Dylan nodded, then offered, "We've got time. Want some help tracking down a runaway Honda?" "BMW," she corrected, then softened. "But yeah, I'd like that." He reached down, gently lifted her dropped handbag. It was heavy, overstuffed with travel, perfume, and paper. "You always fly this graceful," he teased. She shook her head, cheeks coloring. "You caught me mid-Nervel." Dylan smiled. Sometimes those are the best kind of people to meet. She looked at him, really looked like she wasn't sure why, but didn't mind. All right then, stranger. Lead the way. 3 bags wheeled. One was dragged. One was cursed at under breath. You'd think I packed for a semester abroad, she muttered. Tripping slightly over a rogue strap, you pack like my aunt moving houses, Dylan said, grinning. Your aunt sounds like a wise woman, she shot back, catching herself against a pillar. Do all airport janitors give VIP baggage assistance? Only for those who seem like they're one wrong turn from crying in a Cinnabon. She laughed again. Fuller now. Touche. Lily walked ahead, hopping between the floor tiles like stepping stones. The woman watched her for a moment. She's got good rhythm, she said. She dances more than she walks, Dylan replied. Keeps her happy. I could use some of that, the woman murmured. They reached the parking garage. Dylan guided her through the levels like someone who knew every inch of the structure, the sounds, the smells, the faulty lights. You travel a lot, he asked, used to. This trip's different. I came back to fix something, or maybe just to see if I still cared about it. He didn't push further. Her words hovered between vulnerability and armor. Then she turned, pausing beside Lily. Do you like to draw? Lily nodded, hugging her sketchbook close. What do you draw? Dreams, Lily said. Big ones. The woman knelt slowly, balancing herself with one hand. And what's your biggest one? Lily opened her mouth to answer, then hesitated, eyes flicking to her dad. He gave her a gentle nod, silent but steady. And just as she opened the book, a car alarm chirped from the corner of the lot. There it is, the woman smiled. The rogue BMW lives, but her gaze lingered on Lily's sketchbook. You said dreams, huh? She asked, rising. What's yours? The BMW sat like a sleeping animal in the far corner, glinting under the garage lights. Dylan helped her with the trunk while Lily stood nearby. Sketchbook pressed against her chest like a shield. The air had cooled, and her nose was starting to pink at the edges. The woman leaned against the open trunk, watching him arrange the luggage with quiet efficiency. You do this often? She asked. Help lost travelers, or load up luxury trunks? She smiled. Both. Only when I'm lucky, he said, and there was something behind it. Worn humor, but also warmth. She glanced down, tapping her car keys. You're good with people, he shrugged. I clean up messes. Sometimes that includes people. She looked at him again, harder this time, and her mom. She asked gently, nodding toward. Lily's hands paused mid. A breath caught. Gone, he said. 3 years. Car crash on a rainy Tuesday. The woman's lips parted, but no words came. The air felt heavier now. She left us with a fridge full of sticky notes, Dylan continued, voice steady. One of them said, be kind to tired strangers. They might be angels. That sounds like something a poet would write, she whispered. She was a kindergarten teacher. A soft silence settled between them. Lily kicked at a pebble near her shoe. Then the woman pulled off her scarf, a soft, beige wrap with a faint gold thread running through it, and handed it to Lily. You remind me of someone I wanted to be, she said quietly. Lily looked to her dad, who gave a small nod. The woman stepped toward the driver's seat, pausing only once. What's your name? Dylan asked. She turned, eyes unreadable. Does it matter? She said, half smiling. Then she drove away. They stood in the terminal again. The echoes of rolling luggage and boarding calls filled the space. But it all felt quieter now, like something unspoken had passed between them and couldn't be undone. The woman held her phone loosely in one hand, eyes scanning the screen but not reading it. Her gate number flashed above them. Final call. Lily tugged on Dylan's sleeve. Can I give her something? He nodded, and Lily pulled out a crumpled piece of paper from her sketchbook. A simple drawing of the 3 of them standing under a sky full of stars. She handed it to the woman with both hands, solemn like a gift. The woman took it slowly, unfolding it. Her expression softened. That's me, she asked. Lily pointed at the stick figure with the big coat and high heels. That's your hair. See, it's confused. The woman laughed. A real laugh this time, one that shook loose something buried. She knelt and hugged Lily, her coat brushing the floor, the drawing pressed between them. Then she stood and looked at Dylan. I meant to come here and make a decision, she said softly, but I ended up just being human for a minute. Dylan met her gaze. You make a good one. Her eyes shimmered, but she blinked it away. You too. Made my layover something worth remembering. The gate agent called her name over the speaker. She turned toward the jet bridge, hesitated, then looked back one last time. Thank you, she said. Not to him. Not just him. To the moment, then she disappeared into the tunnel of fluorescent light and noise. No last name, no number, no goodbye wave, just the drawing in her hand. And the scarf she didn't take back. The buzz of the departure terminal faded into the growl of old pipes and flickering fluorescent lights. Dylan stepped into the break room of his second job, a packaging warehouse clinging to life on the city's edge. The clock on the wall read 8:08 a.m. He was 23 minutes late. Clock-ins broken. He lied to the supervisor. Your clock's always broken, the man muttered, stacking lines and row go. No one greeted him. No one asked how his night was. Here, he wasn't a father or a helper. He was just hands tired, rough, and replaceable. The warehouse floor smelled of sweat and cardboard. He pulled on his gloves and joined the line, lifting boxes onto pallets, feeling his spine protest with every movement. His arms ached, not from labor, but from knowing this wasn't even the hardest part of his day. Lily would be in school now, her drawing probably tucked into her lunchbox like a secret. And that woman, she'd be in the sky or already gone, her BMW slipping back into some other world, polished, fast, unreachable. Dylan blinked away the thought, refocused on the line. A voice crackled over the intercom. All staff, check your email. Company-wide memo from corporate. Effective immediately, he wiped his forehead. Stepped into the narrow hallway with the staff computer. The email was there, blinking at the top of the inbox, introducing our new CEO. A bold new chapter begins today. He clicked and froze. The photo was small, professional, polished, but the eyes, the same ones that sparkled when Lily gave her that confused hair drawing, the woman from the garage. No scarf, no suitcase, just a new title, UNMOV. Her photo was crisp, taken under perfect lighting, with her hair smooth and purposeful now, not the frizzed version. Tumbling over her coat the morning she'd forgotten where she parked, her name was typed neatly beneath it. Rowan Hartley, Chief Executive Officer. Rowan. He said it under his breath, as if the sound might change something. His fingers hovered over the mouse. He read the welcome message once, then again, then a third time. Leadership built on empathy, clarity, and community. Values he almost laughed. She hadn't even told him her name. The woman who had looked lost in a parking garage was now being announced like the second coming of capitalism, a visionary who would restore the company's culture of humility and growth. And yet, she'd walked away without even asking for his dot down the hall. A new memo was being taped to the corkboard. Dylan walked over slowly. New assignments effective this week. He scanned the list. His name was next to a floor he'd never cleaned before. Executive Wing Hartley Office Corridor for a second. The walls felt tighter, like the world was folding in on itself. Had she requested him, or was it just a cruel coincidence? He stepped back, heart thudding. People passed behind him, joking about the new CEO, wondering what she'd be like. No one noticed the way his expression changed, not in panic, but in something quieter, recognition, maybe regret. He looked down at his gloved hands, still just the janitor, still invisible, but not to her. And now, he was about to clean the floor she walked on, the executive hallway. Didn't smell like bleach or coffee, it smelled like money, crisp air freshener layered over polished wood and hidden vents. The lights hummed quieter here. The walls were soft gray with gold accents, and even the plants looked like they came with security clearances. Dylan wheeled his mop cart slowly, as if afraid he might scratch the marble. His sneakers squeaked once. He flinched. At the far end of the corridor, tall, frosted glass doors bore names in brass. All executives. All people who never once said good morning to the janitor. And now, he was expected to scrub their footprints. The cart bumped over a seam in the tile. He adjusted the mop bucket, trying to look like he belonged, even though his reflection in the office windows told a different story. One door stood, slightly ajar. Light spilled from inside, warm, amber, soft. Not like the cold fluorescence of the hallway. There was movement, a figure, back turned, shoulders stiff, hands on hips. He knew that posture. He'd seen it once. Standing beside a stubborn BMW with IV bags and no patience, Rohan, his heartbeat stuttered. He stopped mid-step. Mop halfway dipped, frozen like the floor itself, had snapped him still. He wasn't supposed to see her yet. Not like this. Not here. His fingers curled tighter around the mop handle. She hadn't seen him, but he could see her, perfectly framed in that door, staring out the window like the whole city belonged to her, and maybe it did. He took one step back, and then she turned. Her eyes met his dot briefly. Barely like a glance that hit glass instead of skin. Dylan stood there, mop in hand, heart caught between beats, waiting for something. A flicker of recognition, a smile, a nod. Anything, but she turned away. No pause, no hesitation, just a pivot of her heels and the quiet rustle of expensive fabric as she walked behind her desk. As if they had never met, as if she hadn't clutched his daughter's drawing to her chest, like it meant more than air. Dylan blinked, stepped inside slowly. The hallway light didn't follow. The office absorbed him, swallowed him into its silence. His footsteps padded against carpet now, thick, soft, unfamiliar. She sat down, tapping keys on a sleek glass keyboard. Her jaw set in a line sharp enough to slice through every memory he carried. He mopped around the perimeter of the room, carefully avoiding the desk. She didn't look up, didn't speak. He could hear the faint clink of a spoon. Stirring coffee, she was doing it deliberately, pretending not to know. And he didn't understand why it made his chest feel tight. Maybe she regretted their moment. Maybe he'd misread it all. He was just the janitor. After all, her voice came suddenly. Crisp, clear, cold. Please make sure the conference class is streak-free before 11. He nodded, his lips pressed into a thin line. Yes, ma'am, that was it. That was all. No crayon drawings, no lost keys, no scarf, just titles, distance, and silence. He turned away. She never looked back. Dylan handed Lily her sandwich across the back seat. The crusts cut off, just like she liked. They sat parked outside the school, windows fogging lightly in the morning chill, watching him with the kind of gaze that children have. Too honest, too sharp. You look like you saw a ghost, she said. Dylan gave a tired smile. Maybe I did. She tilted her head. Was it the airport lady? He turned slightly, surprised. How'd you know? I saw her on your phone when you thought I was asleep. Her picture, she had less hair poof. He laughed under his breath, shaking his head. You don't miss a thing. She didn't say hi to you, huh? His silence answered. Lily frowned, the corners of her mouth turning down. But you helped her. Doesn't mean she has to remember, Dylan said softly. She should. He looked at her, eyes full of belief. Of justice only children truly understand. Sometimes people forget the small things when they get big, he added. Lily folded her napkin slowly, thinking hard. If I was her, I'd say hi. I know you would, he whispered. The school bell rang in the distance. She leaned over, kissed his cheek, and grabbed her backpack. Before she opened the door, she paused. Are you still cleaning her floor? Dylan hesitated, then shook his head. No, he said. I think I'll ask for reassignment. Lily stared at him for a moment, then nodded, not in agreement, but in understanding. And as she disappeared through the school gate, Dylan leaned back in his seat. Sometimes silence was louder than words, and sometimes being forgotten hurt worse than being ignored. The bulletin board in the staff break room buzzed with chatter. An official announcement was pinned dead center in bold, serif letters. Welcome CEO Hartley. All corporate staff invited to Friday's evening mixer. Executive Lounge, 6 p.m. The words glowed like gold. Around it, the floor buzzed with energy. People were already planning what to wear, what to say, who to impress. Dylan stood at the coffee pot, pouring lukewarm brew into a paper cup, half listening. Full bar, live music, someone said. Apparently, she's bringing in a jazz quartet. Yeah, another laughed. And they're only letting in people who don't own a mop. Snickers followed. Dylan didn't flinch. He was used to being the furniture useful, but invisible. He checked the bottom of the memo. Eligibility, corporate, HR, finance, leadership and executive teams only. Nothing about janitorial. Nothing ever about janitorial. He folded his arms. Leaning against the counter, watching the laughter float around him like smoke, he couldn't breathe in. A familiar voice chimed beside him. You going? He turned. Eva, the receptionist. Mid-50s, floral scarf. The only person in the building who remembered birthdays. Not on the guest list, he said with a wry smile. She frowned. That's ridiculous. You've worked here longer than half the execs. Doesn't matter. I've also cleaned more of their coffee spills. Eva looked at him, something stewing behind her eyes. Then, without a word, she reached into her purse and slid a small white envelope across the counter. No name on it, she whispered, but I requested one extra. Dylan stared at it. You didn't get this from me, and just like that, she walked away, heels clicking like punctuation. Marks across the tile, Dylan held the envelope like it might burn or bloom. The thrift store mirror was cracked in the corner. Casting a slanted version of Dylan back at himself, he adjusted the sleeves of a navy blazer, 2 sizes too big. Shoulder seams hanging low, but it was the best he could afford. A pale gray shirt with mismatched buttons peeked from beneath. The tie was borrowed, the shoes scuffed and quiet. The kind of outfit that said, I tried and hoped that was enough. He exhaled, back home. Lily sat cross-legged on their worn-out couch, coloring with fierce concentration. Do I look like someone who belongs at a party with a jazz quartet? He asked. She looked up, eyes scanning him top to bottom. Thoughtfully, seriously, almost, she said. He chuckled. Almost, huh? She jumped down, ran into her bedroom, and returned with a soft beige scarf, the one the woman left behind. She held it up like a crown. This made her look important, she said, and nice. Maybe it'll do both for you. He crouched, eye level with her. She nodded. You helped her. Now maybe it helps you. Dylan looped the scarf around his neck. It didn't match. It didn't matter. He stood, and for the first time in a long while, he didn't feel like the janitor. He felt invited. As he locked the door behind him, Lily whispered from the window, Be brave tonight. His fingers touched the scarf gently. One suit, one shot, one strange invitation. And maybe, just maybe, someone would remember him this time. The executive lounge shimmered with quiet elegance, glass walls, dim golden lighting, soft jazz curling through the air like perfume. Waiters in black vests carried trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres too fancy to name. Dylan stepped in slowly, adjusting the scarf around his neck. The blazer itched. His breath felt shallow. No one looked up. He moved through the room like a ghost in good shoes, slipping past clusters of men with square jawlines and rehearsed laughter. The women wore tailored blazers and effortless confidence. They stood in circles, wine glasses poised like weapons of charm. Dylan kept to the wall, nodding politely, ignored in return. A waiter paused in front of him, looked him over, then whispered Kitchen's in the back. Sir, I'm not Kitchen, Dylan replied, quiet but firm. The waiter blinked, unsure. Then moved on. Dylan's fingers tightened around his drink. He hadn't taken a sip. The music shifted a low, moody trumpet now. A voice called for attention near the front, and then she walked in, Rowan Hartley. She wore a deep navy dress that matched the sharpness in her jaw. Her hair was swept back, her eyes focused. Everyone turned toward her, gravity bending to her entrance. She smiled, nodded to the room, thanked the band. Lifted her glass, Dylan stood frozen beneath a golden chandelier, the shadows painting him half invisible. Then, in the middle of her small talk and curated charisma, her eyes met his Dot. Just for a moment, and something changed. But before he could lift his hand, someone stepped in front of her. She looked away, back to the room, back to being untouchable. Thank you all for being here tonight, Rowan said, her voice smooth and practiced, glass raised high. This company runs on values we've nearly forgotten: humility, service, and the unseen work that holds everything together. Dylan stood near the back wall, shoulder brushing against a tall potted plant. The scarf itching his neck again. He listened carefully. Every word felt close, like she was circling something real. Something about him. His heart stirred. We talk about innovation, growth, disruption, she continued. But the real transformation begins when we choose to notice those we usually overlook. Heads nodded. Glasses, CLINKED. Dylan waited. A single sentence, a glance, a moment, but it never came. Her eyes never returned to his. Her voice never said what it once whispered in a quiet garage. Not his name, not his story, just polished lines. Strategic applause. She raised her drink again. To the future. To the future, the room echoed. Dylan didn't raise his glass. He set it down on a side table. Untouched, the music resumed. People laughed. Plates of dessert began to circulate. He stepped back, coat brushing past fabric more expensive than his rent. Shoes silent against the floor. No one stopped him. No one asked who he was. The elevator button glowed red as he pressed it, the doors opening like a sigh. And just before they closed, he looked back. Rowan stood at the front of the room, lit like a painting, smiling for someone else. The doors shut, and Dylan rode down alone. The scarf still around his neck, the last of the guests drifted toward the desert table. Laughter echoing under chandeliers. Plates clinked, champagne fizzed, and the jazz band slid into a lazy rendition of Misty. Rohan moved like a current, shaking hands, offering smiles, half present in every conversation. But her eyes kept flicking toward the spot by the back. While he was gone, a quiet unease followed her as she excused herself from a VP speech about quarterly returns and crossed to the side table near the potted plant. Something was there. A napkin, folded gently. Placed where a glass once stood, she picked it up. Confused, unfolded it. A crayon drawing, lines curved in soft pinks and light blue. Stick figures standing beneath the sun. A little girl with a ponytail. A tall man in a scarf. And a third figure, in a long coat and high heels, daughter beneath them. In uneven handwriting, "Thank you for not being scary." Lily, her fingers trembled. No one had called her anything but ma'am in 5 years. She sat down slowly, napkin still open in her hand. The room buzzed around her, oblivious. She stared at the drawing as if it were a photo of a life she had almost entered, but stepped back from the girl, the dad, the moment that hadn't been rehearsed, and she had erased it tonight with glass applause. And silence, her vision blurred. She blinked hard and folded the drawing once more. Softer this time, clutched it tight. She didn't see him leave, but she felt his absence. Now, louder than applause, the locker room smelled like bleach and disappointment. Dylan sat on the wooden bench, pulling off his work boots. His name tag, half faded, hung loose from his shirt pocket. A folded slip of paper lay on the bench beside him, the kind that changed everything with a single sentence. Effective immediately, Dylan Monroe. Reassigned to Logistics Annex, Night Shift, West Warehouse, he read it again. Even though the words hadn't changed, no explanation, no signature, just a line through his name on the staff schedule where executive wing maintenance used to be. He leaned forward, elbows on knees, staring at the floor. So that was it. No confrontation, no warning, just erased, clean as the glass he used to wipe. Had she requested it? Or had someone noticed the janitor didn't belong in gold-lit rooms? That night, back home, Lily curled beside him on their worn couch. Her head rested on his arm, and they watched cartoons that neither of them were really paying attention to. He hadn't told her yet, but she noticed the silence, the way he kept checking his phone for nothing. "Daddy!" "Yeah, did you do something wrong at work?" He looked down at her. Her voice was soft, fragile, like she wasn't asking about his job, she was asking about the world. He hesitated. "No, baby," he said. "Sometimes you can do everything right and still end up in the wrong place." She blinked at him, trying to understand. Then she handed him her blanket. "Then maybe you need something soft." He tucked it around her shoulders, smiling through the break in his chest. Outside, a cold wind howled against the window, and inside, Dylan stared at the drawing still taped to the fridge, the one with 3 people, now missing one, the warehouse. Hum was different than the airport. Colder, grayer. Machines didn't whisper like marble floors or hum like escalators. They groaned. During his break, Dylan sat on an overturned crate in the back corridor, pen in hand, a wrinkled notepad across his knee. The words didn't come easily. Not at first then, slowly. "Rowan, I don't know why I'm writing this. Maybe because you didn't say anything when you saw me. Maybe because I wanted to believe what happened at the airport mattered to you the way it mattered to me and Lily. Maybe it was just a scarf to you. Maybe I was just a kind stranger. But you were more than that. Even in the mess you were kind to. You knelt for my daughter. You laughed when your hands were full. And for a moment, I saw someone. Real, not a title. not a polished portrait. Then you disappeared. And when you came back, you erased it. But I didn't. He stared at the last line for a long time. Then he folded the paper, slid it into an old envelope, and tucked it deep inside his coat pocket. He never meant to send it at home. While folding laundry, Lily found it crumpled in the coat's lining. She opened it, read what she could, and without a word, she sealed it, wrote to the lady from the glass room on the front, and placed it inside her backpack. The next morning, on the way to school, she dropped it into the big blue mailbox. A letter never meant to be read. Now on its way to change everything, Rowan sat behind her desk, the skyline casting morning shadows across her office. A steaming cup of tea sat untouched, growing cold as the city blinked beyond the glass. Eva knocked gently. "Mail from downstairs, ma'am." Rowan waved a hand without looking up. Her inbox had been a battlefield all morning. Vendor contracts, board demands, a staffer resigning over burnout. She needed a pause, something UNSHARP. She opened the envelope last. There was no return address, just a few folded sheets lined, handwritten, smudged in the corners like they'd been carried for days. She read the first line. Then the next dot, her hand stilled. The air around her shifted. She leaned back in her chair, and she read every word twice. Her mouth parted as if to speak, but no sound came. A tightness rose in her throat, uninvited. Her eyes stung. It wasn't angry. It wasn't demanding. It was just honest.una, RMORED. Every line peeled back another layer she'd hidden behind. It wasn't the criticism that cut, it was the clarity. The way he saw her, the way she had vanished behind a podium and a nameplate when someone had already met her soul. She had meant to call him, she just didn't know how. Her hand reached for her phone, fingers trembling, then stopped. Instead, she pressed the intercom. "Cancel all my meetings today." There was a pause on the line. "Everything, Ms. Hartley." "Yes," she said, "everything." She folded the letter again, tighter this time, as if holding something precious. Her reflection in the window didn't look like a CEO anymore, just a woman who remembered too late. Dylan stepped into the elevator with the same posture he wore at every job, shoulders slightly hunched, hands quiet, eyes lowered just enough to not invite attention. The warehouse night shift had ended early due to a power outage. He figured he'd swing by the main building, drop off his uniform for cleaning, and go unnoticed, but fate doesn't ask for permission. The elevator door slid open with a gentle chime, and there she was. Rowan alone, inside the glass box. Lit like a confession booth, they stared at each other. Both froze. She didn't move. Neither did he. After a breath that felt like 1,000, he stepped in. Nodded once. Stood on the opposite side. The door slid shut behind him, locking them in. The hum of the elevator motor filled the silence. He didn't speak. Neither did she. She clutched a folder tight against her chest, like a shield. He glanced sideways, then forward again. They passed floor 8, then 7. Still silence. It was unbearable, until finally, she whispered just loud enough to be heard. "I remember." His chest tightened. Slowly, he turned toward her. "I didn't forget," she added, her voice unsteady. "I just didn't know how to stay real once I became who they expected." He looked at her. Really looked. The scarf had returned. So had the eyes from that airport. Benched out, the elevator slowed. "I never meant to started. He raised a hand gently. Not angry. Just tired. "Don't," he said. "Not here." The doors opened. He stepped out without looking back. And this time, it was her turn to watch him disappear. She found him in the loading dock an hour later. He was crouched beside a forklift, tightening a bolt that didn't need fixing, sleeves rolled up, jaw clenched, eyes focused anywhere but her. "Dylan," she said gently. He didn't look up. "I wasn't sure you'd speak to me again," she added. "I wasn't planning to," he said flatly. Rowan took a step closer, heels clicking against the concrete. "I read the letter." He stood slowly, wiped his hands on a rag, finally meeting her eyes. There was no anger in them, just something heavier, like the silence between rain and thunder. "I wrote that because I needed to say it," he said. "Not because I thought you'd answer." She swallowed hard. "I was scared. Scared that if I acknowledged you, I'd lose control." He nodded once. "You did," she blinked. What? You did lose control, he said. That day in the parking lot, and you were human. You were real. His voice softened, but the edge remained. And then you put your armor back on. Pretended I didn't exist. Not even for Lily's sake. Rowan's lips parted. He raised a hand again. Calm, measured. I don't want an apology, Rowan. Her name on his lips made her flinch. I just want you to know, I don't remember you like that anymore. She took a step back, as if those words had weight. I remember you from the garage. From the scarf? From the laugh? He turned away, grabbed his jacket. Not from the speech, he said. Not from the silence. And with that, he walked out, leaving her standing in a place with no glass. No applause, just the echo of everything she didn't say. Rowan sat behind the wheel of her own car for once. No chauffeur, no tinted glass. She followed from a distance, a cautious distance, past chain-link fences and corner stores. Through neighborhoods with laundry lines instead of skylines, Dylan's truck dented. Coughing, smoke, turned into a narrow street lined with crooked mailboxes and cracked sidewalks. He parked outside a small apartment complex with peeling paint and rusted stair rails. She didn't expect it to feel so quiet, not tragic, not dramatic, just real. She sat in the car for a while after he disappeared inside, engine ticking as it cooled. Her perfectly manicured nails. Tapped the steering wheel, then she stepped out. The air smelled like warm cement and dryer sheets. On the porch sat Lily, cross-legged crayons spread out in a plastic lunchbox. Her shoes were mismatched. Her hair was wild. Her focus, absolute. She didn't see Rowan at first, but Rowan saw her, the little girl who had drawn her into a world she hadn't known she needed. Rowan walked closer, cautiously, heels clicking, until she realized the sound didn't belong here. She slipped them off, barefoot on concrete. Lily finally looked up. Her eyes didn't narrow. They didn't widen, they just softened. You're the lady who lost her car, she said simply. Rowan nodded. And maybe something more. Lily held up a new drawing this time. It was Rowan and Dylan sitting at a small table, with coffee mugs and a pie in between. You're having breakfast, Lily explained. Rowan crouched down. That looks nice, Lily smiled. You're smiling in this one. Rowan blinked hard. Maybe you should come in, Lily said. Pointing toward the door, Rowan hesitated, then followed, not out of power, but out of hope. The kitchen was small, barely room for two people to stand without their shoulders touching. The coffee was instant. The mugs didn't match. One had a chip on the rim. The other read "Number 1, Dad" in fading blue letters. Rowan wrapped her hands around hers, staring into the swirling steam. It smelled burnt. Honest Dot, Dylan leaned against the counter, arms folded, waiting. I didn't come to fix anything, she said quietly. I didn't ask you to. She looked up. Then why'd you let me in? He shrugged. Lily invited you. Rowan smiled, barely. She's a good judge of people. She's also 8, he said. Rowan traced a finger along the side of the mug. That letter. It made me feel like someone had watched me when I wasn't looking, and still chose to see the best. I wasn't trying to make you feel anything, he said. I was trying to feel something myself. Her eyes met his. You felt invisible. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. She looked around. The cracked tiles, the squeaky fan above the stove, the drawing pin to the fridge with a magnet shaped like a cat. You deserve more than this, she whispered. Dylan scoffed lightly, not unkindly. You don't know what I deserve. No, she admitted. But I know this world's rigged to make men like you think you're meant to mop the floor instead of stand on it. He went, quiet. Rohan sipped the bitter coffee, winced, smiled. Anyway, I don't want to be the reason you gave up on that garage woman. You already were, he said. Steady, she looked away. But she didn't leave, and he didn't ask. Rowan set the empty mug down with a soft clink. I want to offer you something, she said carefully, like someone approaching a wounded animal. Dylan raised an eyebrow. More coffee. She almost laughed, but the air between them was too fragile. No, she said. A position. Full-time, not janitorial. Something with your name on the door. Community engagement, mentorship. I'll build it around you. He didn't move. You'd be working directly with my leadership team, she continued. Setting programs. Speaking to people who matter. He leaned back against the counter, eyes narrowing. People who matter. She froze. That's not what I meant. He crossed his arms. But it's what you said. Rowan stepped forward. I meant people who make decisions. People who can change things. I change things every day, Dylan said, his voice low. Just not from behind a desk. She softened. Then change them with me. He shook his head slowly. You think this is kindness, but it feels like control. It's opportunity. It's pity. No, Dylan, she said, voice breaking. It's me trying to undo what I messed up. You didn't mess up, he replied, stepping past her. You just did what you always do. Walk away before it gets real. That's not fair. No, he said, turning back. What's not fair is that you get to choose who you are every day. I don't. Silence fell between them again. She reached into her purse, pulled out a polished envelope. I had it drawn up, she whispered. He didn't touch it. We're not the same, he said. Then he walked to the door and held it open, holding the offer that suddenly felt so small, and walked out without another word. The hallway outside his apartment felt louder than before, a flickering light, a baby crying down the hall, footsteps on concrete stairs. Rowan held the envelope in one hand, her purse in the other. Her heels tapped the ground like questions with no answers. She didn't knock again, didn't look back. She walked to her car, where the black sedan idled at the curb. Her driver, Marcus, stepped out to open the door, but she shook her head, just stood there, like she couldn't decide if she was going home or running away. Then she opened her purse to put the envelope away. But something else caught her. Fingers first, a folded piece of paper. Crayon lines pressed into the surface, still warm from being held. She unfolded it slowly. Another drawing from Lily. This time the three of them sat at a table. No coffee, just pancakes and sunlight. There were flowers on the windowsill, a dog under the table, a caption written in shaky handwriting above it, "Everyone is smiling today." Rowan's eyes filled before she even realized it. She sat down in the back seat, held the drawing close to her chest. Marcus glanced in the rearview mirror. "Everything all right, Miss Hartley?" She didn't answer. Tears slipped silently down her cheek. Not dramatic, not loud, just real. For the first time in years, she wasn't wiping them away. Marcus turned forward again, said nothing. The city blurred past her window as they drove, but her eyes stayed on the drawing the entire ride. She had left his apartment, but she was taking more with her than she expected, and it was starting to undo her. The morning staff meeting buzzed with curiosity. Dylan sat at the far end of the long folding table in the warehouse break room, sipping stale coffee while others whispered over their phones. A printed memo sat at the center of the table. Like a guest, no one knew how to greet. Subject: company-wide pilot program, inclusive leadership, roundtable. He skimmed at corporate jargon, too polished, too hopeful. But then his name stopped him. Selected employees: Dylan Monroe, Facilities; Janet Ortiz, HR; Rashid Khan, Security; others, TBD. Dylan stared. Facilities. That was him. The line below was worse. Invited to share insights and help build a human-centered initiative reflecting the company's values. He read it twice. His coworker leaned over. "You going?" "I didn't ask for this," Dylan muttered. "You think any of us did?" Dylan folded the memo quietly, slipped it into his pocket. The same hand that once mopped conference floors now trembled under a paragraph of forced inclusion. He didn't want their roundtable. He wanted respect when no one was watching. Still, her name was at the bottom. Initiative approved and overseen by Rowan Hartley, CEO. He couldn't tell if it was a peace offering or a performance. Later, in the staff hallway, Eva approached him with a folder. "Rowan asked me to give you this. Inside the date and time of the boardroom meeting, not the basement, not the hallway, the top floor. With the executives, you can say no," Eva said gently. Dylan looked up toward the elevator shaft. "No," he said. "I think I have to say yes." The boardroom looked nothing like the warehouse. No grease, no scuffed tiles, no flickering lights, just glass, polished oak, brushed steel, and 12 chairs too expensive for comfort. Dylan sat in one of them. His shirt was ironed. His hands were clean, but his boots still bore the scars of concrete and mop water around him. People introduced themselves: consultants, managers, HR leads, all in suits, all in circles, No one asked his name. A woman from HR gave him a nod. Supplies closets on the lower level. "Hun, I'm not here for supplies," he replied quietly. Someone cleared their throat awkwardly. The air thickened. He opened the folder Rowan had sent. Inside, a blank notepad, a branded pen, a typed agenda. Across the room, two men in matching suits whispered behind hands. "Is that the janitor from the South Wing? Guess this is her big idea of diversity." Dylan heard it, said nothing. Instead, he looked out the floor-to-ceiling windows. The city stretched below, loud, beautiful, broken. He didn't belong here, but neither did half the people, who pretended they did. A sudden hush fell over the room. The door opened. Rowan entered calm elegant. 5 minutes late, every executive stood instinctively. She wore no heels today, just soft flats and the beige scarf. Around her neck, her eyes scanned the room once, briefly landing on him. No smile, no nod, just that steady gaze. Then she took her seat at the head of the table and spoke the words that would make everyone listen. "Before we begin," she said, "let me tell you why he's here." The room waited, unblinking. Rowan placed both hands flat on the table. Before this initiative had a name, she began, "It had a moment." She didn't read from notes, didn't blink at the suits shifting in their chairs. "I was lost once, literally. In an airport parking garage, tired, frustrated, invisible, despite my title." A few exchanged puzzled glances. "Someone found me," she continued, eyes fixed forward. "Not because he needed anything, not because he knew who I was, but because kindness, to him, was not a task. It was instinct." She paused. "And that person is sitting here today." Murmurs rustled around the table. Dylan stared down at his notepad, still blank. "His name is Dylan Monroe. You've passed him 100 times without looking, and that's exactly why we're starting this program." She looked directly at him now, because impact doesn't always wear a suit. The silence cracked. A slow ripple of applause began, hesitant, then growing. Some clapped out of guilt, some out of surprise. But a few clapped because they understood. Dylan stood up before it could build further. "Appreciate the words," he said quietly, "but I didn't show up to be a symbol." Rowan opened her mouth to speak. He was already moving toward the door. "I just came to do the job someone thought I couldn't." The applause faded as quickly as it began. He stepped out of the room, the click of the door behind him, sharper than any microphone. Rowan sat still at the head of the table, her hands now folded tightly together. Lily sat at the kitchen table, her math homework untouched, her face tilted up, toward him with the sharp honesty of children. Dylan tossed his keys into the chipped bowl by the door. "I said enough. But did you tell them about your ideas? About the school thing? Or the breakfast program you talked about?" He sat down across from her, rubbing his face. "I wasn't there to impress them, Lil. You were there to be you." He looked at her. "You help people," she said quietly. Even when no one claps, he tried to smile. It didn't quite land. Lily reached into her backpack and pulled out the folded paper she always carried, the dream drawing. She flattened it gently between them on the table. "There's still space here," she said, pointing to a blank corner, "for something new." He stared at the drawing, the house on the hill, the dog in the yard. The little stick version of him holding her hand, that corner. It hadn't been empty before. "I erased her," Lily said. "The lady from the airport." Dylan blinked. "Why?" "Because she forgot you." He swallowed hard. "But now I think maybe she just forgot how to be seen." She looked up at him, her voice barely a whisper. "Don't forget who you are. Just because someone else did?" He sat back in his chair, eyes locked on that blank corner for the first time. He didn't want to fill it with anger. He wanted to wait. Maybe, for her to come back, the airport hadn't changed. Same fluorescent hum, same tired announcements, same scent of coffee and worn-out travelers, dragging dreams behind them on wheels. But something felt different. Dylan moved slowly through the terminal, not as a janitor, not as a visitor, just a man chasing a memory. He passed the arrivals board, the security gates, the newsstand with overpriced gum. His boots clicked quietly across the tile, echoing a rhythm he hadn't felt since the day he carried too many bags and not enough words. And then he saw it. The bench, the same one near the parking deck entrance, half under a flickering light. the place where a woman once stood, turning in circles. Trying to remember where she belonged, he almost turned back, but there she was, already there. Rowan sat on the far end of the bench, heels off, coat folded neatly beside her, fingers twisting something soft between them, as if she'd been waiting not just minutes, but weeks, maybe longer. He paused a few feet away. Neither spoke. A family bustled past with balloons and backpacks, and still the silence held, not heavy, but delicate. She turned then, slowly, and met his eyes. No title, no shield, just Rowan. "I didn't know if you'd come," she said quietly. "I didn't either," he replied. She shifted slightly, made room beside her. Dylan looked at the space, at the scarf in her hands, at the place they left something behind. Then he sat, not too close, but close enough to remember what mattered. They sat in silence for a long moment. Planes roared above. People rushed past, dragging carry-ons and coffee cups, none of them noticing the two figures sharing the bench, 2 stories braided by accident and ache. Rowan stared ahead, then spoke without looking at him. "I wasn't just lost that morning," she said. "I was ready to quit. I'd flown in to hand in my resignation." Dylan's brow furrowed. Why? I didn't believe in what I'd become. The title, the constant pressure, the way people stopped talking to me like a person and only saw the decisions I made. Her voice cracked. I was tired of pretending I still believed it mattered. He didn't interrupt. I parked that car and sat in it for 40 minutes, crying, panicking. And then I forgot where I put it. Literally, she laughed softly. It felt like my brain just gave up. She turned to him now and then. "You!" He looked at her. "You didn't see a CEO or a name badge or a quarterly report. You saw a person unraveling, and you helped me. You didn't ask why. You just helped." He said nothing, but something shifted behind his eyes. "I walked away because it scared me," Rowan continued. "Being seen like that, being helped without earning it. It reminded me I used to be that kind of person too." She touched the scarf in her lap. "You showed me who I forgot I was." Dylan exhaled, steady and deep. She wasn't asking for forgiveness. She was offering something, braver truth, and he listened. Because sometimes redemption doesn't come with applause. Sometimes it's just a conversation on an old bench. "You know," Dylan said, leaning back slightly, "you were a disaster that day." Rowan turned to him, eyebrows raised. "I mean it," he added, grinning now. "Bag straps, twisted, coat huff on. You tried to scan your phone upside down." She gasped in mock offense. "I was emotionally distressed." "You were emotionally tangled," he teased. For the first time in what felt like months, Dylan laughed. Not the polite kind. Not the tired chuckle. A real one, from the belly, light and sharp, like a crack in gray clouds. Rowan smiled, soaking in the sound like it was rare music. Lily said, "You looked like a movie star who forgot her lines." He added. Rowan clutched her heart dramatically. She did not. She absolutely did. They both laughed then, loud enough that a passing traveler looked over, confused but smiling at their joy. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was full. She looked at him, softer now. "Thank you for coming today." "I didn't come for you," he replied, gently. "I came to remember why I'm not invisible." She nodded. "Then I'm glad I was here when you did." He tilted his head. "Is that what this is? Closure." She reached into her coat pocket, pulled out a folded document, not in an envelope, not sealed, just worn from being touched too many times. "I have one more offer," she said. He sighed, ready to refuse again. But she held it out. "This one's real. No titles, no offices, no pressure," he hesitated. "What is it?" She smiled. "A clean slate." She handed him the paper. It wasn't corporate letterhead this time. No signature lines. No legal jargon. Just a simple printed description. Community engagement lead. Pilot role, reporting to no one. Responsibilities, listening, building, leading from where you stand. Below it, a name already filled in, Dylan Monroe. He blinked. "This is for real?" he asked. Voice low. Rowan nodded. "You decide the terms, the hours, the focus. I want you to build something that doesn't just check boxes. I want you to build what you never had." He folded the paper slowly, carefully, like it might break if he wasn't gentle. She reached into her coat pocket again and pulled out something small. A single silver key attached to a blank tag. "Your office," she said. "It's not on the top floor. It's next to the cafeteria. Big windows. A door that locks and opens." He held the key in his palm, staring at it. It wasn't heavy, but it carried weight. He closed his fingers around it, then looked at her. "I'll take it," he said. Relief washed over her face. "But only if I can bring my daughter on day 1. Rowan smiled. "She's already on the invite list." He looked at her for a long moment, searching for performance, for pretense. But all he found was someone who'd once been lost, to dot and now wanted to build a map for others. He nodded slowly. The key clicked into his pocket like it belonged there, and maybe, finally, so did he. The kitchen table was covered in crayons, juice boxes, and 2 bowls of cereal slowly going soggy. Lily leaned over her sketchpad, tongue sticking out slightly as she focused. "Does your office have a window?" she asked. "A big one," Dylan replied, sipping his coffee. "Faces the courtyard. Can I sit near it? You'll be the first to decorate it," she beamed, adding bright yellow curtains to the sketch. Rowan watched them, shoes off, sleeves rolled up, a warm calm softening the sharp edges of her presence. "You want to add anything?" Lily asked her, holding out a green crayon. Rowan blinked. "Me." Lily nodded. "It's a contract. Everyone involved has to sign with art." Rohan chuckled, then gently took the crayon and drew a tiny coffee mug next to the window, steam curling like a question mark. Lily nodded approvingly. "Good, now it's official." She folded the paper carefully, creasing each edge with her thumbs like it was something sacred. Then, without warning, Lily stood and walked over to Rowan's purse. "What are you doing?" Rowan asked softly. Lily opened the flap and slipped the folded drawing inside. "In case you forget again," she said. "It'll remind you." Rowan stared at her for a moment, heart swelling. Throat tight, she reached out, pulled Lily into a hug. Dylan watched them, something unspoken moving in his chest. It didn't feel like starting over, it felt like continuing something that had always been waiting, somewhere between a drawing, a key, and a second chance. The suit wasn't expensive, but it was clean, pressed, dark blue with a white shirt and no tie. Dylan didn't want to look like someone he WASN. Single quotes T. Lily stood behind him on a stool, brushing imaginary lint from his shoulders with serious precision. "You look like a principal," she said. "I'm not sure that's a compliment." "It is if the principal's cool," she grinned. He turned to the mirror. For the first time in a long time, the man staring back didn't look tired. He looked steady at the front doors of the company headquarters. Security waved him through with a smile. No badge check, no second glance, just recognition. The elevator ride was quiet, smooth. When he stepped into the lobby near the cafeteria, employees moved past him in waves, fast, distracted, focused on their screens. But some looked up and nodded. He walked toward his new office, a modest glass front room with sunlight pouring through the tall windows, just like Rowan had promised. The desk was already set up. A whiteboard leaned against the wall, and on the door, a simple plaque. Dylan Monroe, Community Engagement He, stood there for a second longer than he meant to. Behind him, a familiar voice called out, "Monroe." He turned. It was Gerald, the janitor who had trained him on his first day. The same man who once told him, "Keep your head down and your mop straight." Now he stood, scratching his head, looking confused. "You single quotes, up here now." Dylan smiled. "Looks like it," Gerald chuckled. "You got any ideas to fix those vending machines?" Dylan grinned, holding the door open. "Let's start with better coffee." The company auditorium wasn't full, but it felt larger than ever. Employees filed in, murmuring, some curious, some skeptical. A few leaned over their programs, scanning the list of speakers. And there it was, opening words, Dylan Monroe, Community Engagement Lead. Rowan stood off to the side, arms crossed lightly, expression unreadable but calm. Dylan stepped up to the mic in his quiet suit, palms dry for once. He didn't have a note card, no speech in hand, just the story he carried in his chest. "I was a janitor here for 7 years, he began, voice steady. "Most of you didn't notice me. That's not a complaint. It's just ... truth." The room went still. "I scrubbed your conference room floors, emptied your bins, mopped after your parties. And all that time, I watched. A pause. I watched people talk about change, while stepping over the ones who needed it. I watched dreams get typed into memos, but never walked down the halls. He let that settle. My daughter once told me she draws dreams when she feels small. That stuck with me. Because maybe that's what this company needs. A reminder that the smallest voices often hold the biggest truths. He looked around the room. I'm not here to lead from above. I'm here to listen beside you. And if that makes someone uncomfortable, good. Growth usually does. Silence, then one clap, then another, until the room erupted into full applause, louder than he expected, warmer than he'd imagined. In the third row, Lily sat with her feet swinging and both hands clapping wildly. He saw her smile, and for the first time, he felt like he'd stepped into her drawing. The applause had faded. The chairs were empty. Now, Dylan stood by the auditorium door, rolling up his sleeves as if the speech still clung to his skin. He felt light, like a weight had been shed. Not all at once, but piece by piece. Rowan approached from the back, slow steps echoing against the quiet floor. She wore a soft navy coat and around her neck. The scarf, the same beige one with the faint gold thread, slightly frayed now at the ends, worn in the corners from being folded too many times. He smiled at the sight of it. You kept it, he said. She reached up, fingers brushing the fabric. Some things don't belong in closets. There was a moment, not charged, not awkward, just full of something understood, stopping just in front of him. You were brilliant up there, she said, voice soft. I wasn't trying to be, he replied. That's why it worked. He tilted his head slightly. You planning to show up in scarves every time I speak? She laughed. Only if they still make you look uncomfortable. He chuckled. Might take more than fabric for that. She looked at him, eyes steady. No glass walls, no CEO distance, just Rowan. I was thinking, she said, since you've now become this wildly popular speaker with a key to the executive coffee machine, maybe we should celebrate. He raised an eyebrow. Celebrate how? She smiled, small but certain. Are you free Friday night? He didn't answer right away, but he didn't look away either. And sometimes, that's the only yes you need. The black sedan pulled up to the curb just outside the main entrance. But this time, Rowan wasn't in the back seat. She stood beside Dylan under the soft evening light, coat folded over her arm, scarf still around her neck. Marcus, her longtime driver, stepped out and gave a knowing smile. Ma'am, he said. Holding the door open, Rowan turned to Dylan. This was always too quiet without conversation. Then let's change that, Dylan replied. He moved ahead and, before she could react, opened the door for her. Her eyes widened slightly, a flicker of recognition. Of reversal, she slid in with a graceful laugh. Careful, you're stealing my job. He joined her on the other side, settling in as Marcus pulled into traffic. For the first few minutes, they didn't speak. They just watched the city move around them, people on bikes, blinking crosswalks, dogs pulling at leashes. The roles between them had melted quietly. Like candle wax in soft heat, he no longer felt like a visitor in her world, and she no longer looked like someone who needed to keep her windows tinted as they turned onto the freeway. The route curved past the long-term parking deck, the same one where their story had started. Rowan looked out the window, eyes narrowing gently. The bench was still there, but it was empty now. She leaned closer to the glass, a whisper escaping her lips. That's where I stopped pretending. Dylan didn't say anything. He just reached over, not to hold her hand, not to pull her close, but to rest his fingers gently over hers. And for the first time, she let them stay. The janitor closet hadn't changed. Same chipped tile. Same half-empty shelves of bleach and mop heads. Same handwritten note taped to the wall. If you spill it, clean it. Dylan stood in the doorway, watching the new hire fumble with a cart that wouldn't roll straight. A teenager, probably 17. Sleeves too long, name tag crooked, wheels caught. Dylan said softly. The kid looked up, startled. Sorry, I didn't see you there. Sir Dylan smiled. Don't call me sir. It's just Dylan. He crouched down and adjusted the front wheel, spinning it once before locking it back in place. The cart rolled smoothly now. Thanks, the kid muttered. You're just starting. Yeah, first real job. I'm trying not to screw it up. Dylan looked at the gloves hanging by the sink, the same kind he used to wear. The same nervous energy in the boy's hands he once carried in his own. "You won't screw it up," he said. "You'll make mistakes, but that's not the same thing." The kid blinked at him. "You cleaned this wing?" he asked. "Before they built the office up here." Dylan nodded. "Cool," the kid said, impressed. "So, what do you do now?" Dylan thought about it. About his key, his plaque, his daughter's drawings taped to his new desk. "I try to make people feel seen," he said. The kid paused, nodded slowly, like he didn't fully get it, but wanted to. Dylan turned to go, then stopped when he heard it. "Thank you, sir," the kid said again, but this time it sounded different. Earned, not assigned. Dylan smiled, walking down the hall toward the sunlight. Some messes don't need mops, just someone who understands what it feels like to be overlooked. The crowd was small, but sincere. Parents, staff, kids in oversized shirts with paint on their hands. Foldable chairs lined the lobby of the company's newly converted annex wing, now home to a creative learning center funded under the new community program, No Banners. No streamers, just warmth. Dylan stood off to the side, watching Lily squirm excitedly in the front row, her sketch pad clutched tight to her chest. Rowan approached with a clipboard, dressed casually for once, hair in a loose braid, sleeves rolled up. No makeup, but a calm glow on her face. "This was your idea," she said. "Quietly, no," Dylan replied, smiling. "This was hers." He nodded toward Lily. A staffer called for attention. "We'd like to recognize the heart behind this project, the little artist who showed us that sometimes the biggest dreams come in the simplest lines." The easel was unveiled, and there it was. Crayon drawing, scanned, printed, and framed, the same one she had slipped into Rowan's purse. 3 stick figures. A house, a garden, a window, smiles drawn wide. Underneath, a title in her handwriting, "This is what it feels like when people matter." Gasps, then applause. Lily blushed furiously, burying her face in her hands as Dylan walked over and gently pulled her into his side. "Hug, you did this," he whispered. "So?" "Did you?" she whispered back. The lobby filled with laughter and light dot, and just above the sign-in desk, beneath the framed drawing. A new plaque was mounted. The Lily Room Dream, believed the sun had slipped behind the buildings as Dylan and Lily walked home, hand in hand. Paper crowns on their heads from the center's opening ceremony. Their shadows stretched long on the sidewalk. Laughter from the event still ringing faintly behind them. Lily skipped once, then twice, then stopped. "Daddy." She looked up at him with that serious little face she made when her thoughts got too big for her chest. She smiles now. "Who?" he asked. The lady Lily said, "From the airport, Miss Rowan." Dylan tilted his head. "Yeah, I guess she does. She didn't before," Lily continued. Even when her face smiled, her eyes didn't. He stopped walking. Lily turned to him. "You changed her." He knelt beside her, brushing a curl from her forehead. "No, baby," he said gently. "She changed herself." Lily frowned. "Then how come she always looks at you like she remembers something important?" Dylan smiled, the kind that sits behind your ribs and warms slowly. "Maybe because I do." They started walking again. Lily hummed softly, a tune she made up on the spot, off-key and perfect. As they reached the porch steps, she paused again. Looking back at the street, did she ever say thank you? Dylan opened the door. She didn't have to. Lily tilted her head. Why not? He looked out toward the darkening city, the skyline blinking quietly in return, then knelt down and whispered, just loud enough for her and no one else. She changed me to the airport hadn't changed. Same voices over the intercom, same cartwheels squeaking across polished tile, same rhythm of arrivals and departures, hellos and goodbyes. But the bench near the parking deck entrance, it had changed because it remembered Dylan walked through the terminal on a quiet Sunday morning. No errands, no shift, no meeting, just something pulling him back. The scarf still lived in his coat pocket, not to wear, but to carry. A reminder of how small things become bridges as he approached the bench. He noticed someone sitting there, young, disoriented. Backpack slumped at her side, a tourist maybe, or just lost between places. She looked up as he passed, eyes wide with that silent question. Where am I, and what do I do now? He stopped. She tried to smile, unsure. Need some help finding your way? He asked, gently. She nodded, surprised. He sat down beside her, just like he had once, not too close, not too far. Just enough to remind her she wasn't invisible, and for a moment, the airport slowed down around them. To strangers, one bench, a news story just beginning to write itself. The camera slowly pulled back, glass windows casting reflections, departure screens blinking above, the echo of Dylan's voice drifting over the soundscape. Funny thing about getting lost, he said softly. It's the only way to be found.